Hello, good morning. This is about the third or fourth video I've done about the fireplace in this house. Now, as you can see, there's an old fire there, and because it wasn't working properly, what we've decided to do instead of having it fixed is all the gas has been turned off. We've had someone do it who is now gas safe registered. Years ago, it wasn't gas safe that would have been doing it. The governing body at the time would have been Corgi. And if my dad had still been alive, then we would have got my dad to do it for us. But unfortunately, that's not the case. So, like most people who are renovating a property, we had to go online and find somebody who was legally certified to cap off the gas to the house. And what we actually found was, before we even decided whether we were going to remove the fire, was, as you can see, we've stripped the fireplace back to what we thought was going to be just the original bare brick. And I actually do have a video, and I was just so shocked as to how effortless it was for me to remove the facade on this chimney breast. I literally was able to peel the paper off in one go. And if you're able to do that, you kind of think to yourself, hang on a minute, that doesn't seem right. That should never have happened. And what we found when we actually did remove the paper was how many patch repairs have actually been done to this chimney breast that originally would have had not an argon range, but a very old-fashioned range would have been here. You've got to realise, in the Victorian era, etc., a lot of people, they wouldn't really have a kitchen as such. Everything would be done in the main living quarters. And that is kind of the sort of, gives you a sort of feel as to what was there originally, also by the gap. And as we were looking to sort of see where we were and one thing and another, we literally were able to remove these bricks with hardly any effort whatsoever. Now, I don't know whether you can see, this is like white filler. So originally we were concerned about whether, because of all the gaps that were in between the bricks, and we were shocked as to how many gaps there were that were literally only kind of sealed in, not even airtight, just with sheets of paper, wallpaper. And what we have found is, as we've removed everything to kind of give us that kind of shape that we're looking for, is that we've had to put in planks of wood to stop the rest of the front of the chimney breast from caving in on us because of all the cracks. At the top you can see where there was some original plaster, but it's not decorated or anything. And as we go down and underneath, you can see again there is some internal damage. The black is soot from the chimney, and all of these bricks, as I will go slowly, they are actually breeze blocks. And you can see clearly how much this chimney breast is basically eroded. It is literally almost just like sand. So we've kind of got to a point now where we've said, right, it is obvious that this is not a job that somebody who is not experienced can do. So what we will now do is we'll probably remove the rest of the breeze blocks so that they're just above where the old fire is. But any other structural work that needs to be undertaken has got to be done by a professional. I know you see these programs on TV all the time about people doing DIY and buying houses and fixing them up themselves. Big mistake. One of the biggest mistakes in my hometown personally, which is Nuneaton, is we're an hour away from London. We are what you call a commuter town. We are basically a warehouse town. A lot of people that buy properties within Nuneaton have buy-to-let mortgages. We have so many houses go up every year, and a lot of the houses are nowhere as big as the house I'm standing in now. They are like rabbit hutches that have been put over 3 stories. So it's like living in an apartment, not a house. And yet a lot of the houses around where this house is located have all been turned into bedsits. And, excuse me, and before we even were the owner of this house is where they are now, the amount of properties that we went and looked at, and we could tell straight away, regardless of the facade, regardless of how great the decor looked, that these houses, just like this one, because they're the same sort of age, would need to be stripped back, just like this one has been. If I slowly pan over to this wall, originally, again, this wall, it was wallpapered, and what we've had to do is fill it where the plaster has changed over time because of what you can and cannot use because of certain building regulations. So don't be ignorant. Ignorance is bliss, and it is no excuse. Just because you think you can trust somebody to come into your home and do the work for you doesn't mean you should not research stuff beforehand. So basically the problem we had with a lot of these walls is they use what is called gypsum, which is a type of plaster. And then over the years that has changed, and the plaster they've then used over the top of the gypsum hasn't stuck. So once you remove the paper, the old plaster stayed, but the new plaster didn't. It started to show cracks. And so all of those cracks, we had 2 choices. We either completely remove it back to bare brick, which, as you can see, we have done in places, or we do a patch test. And basically that's what we've ended up doing. We've ended up having to fill in all the gaps in certain places, sand the wall back, and then repaint. And the likelihood is a lot of the rooms in this property, we are not even going to put wallpaper on. Because what you find is when you start putting wallpaper on, because you're then obviously using another adhesive, the chemical reactions from the wallpaper paste, etc. I'm not a scientist, I'm not trained in chemistry, but it's not compatible. And so again, I've been into properties where you walk straight in and all the outer walls have been covered with black mould. And all the landlords or the owners of those properties have done is bleached it and then painted it with magnolia paint. And within 2 to 3 weeks, all that black mould's come back. And then you have an ongoing battle with the landlord in a buy-to-let property as to there's black mould in the house, why is it not being fixed? And they're like, oh, it's your fault, you've not ventilated the property, blah, blah, blah. And it is terrifying as to how many people try to get around building regulations purely because of the cost. And one thing you don't want to be doing is with a chimney breast, which is the heart of a house, heart of a property, is cut corners. Whatever we decide to do with this chimney, whether it's to put a fire in or not have a fire and you have radiators or underfloor heating, and if it's safer to just strip away the whole of the chimney breast completely so that the walls are level either side, or to rebuild it, it is not something we can do because we are not trained. We do not have the right qualifications or experience to do something like this. And with the way it is at the moment, it would not pass any building regulations. And one of the main reasons for this, as I did mention in a previous video, was because there is no support structure under that ledge. So what we have had to do for safeguarding reasons and to stop any further pressure coming down and preventing any more of the bricks from collapsing is we have put in wooden posts. And a lot of people are probably thinking, that's insane, why have you done that? But again, I live in an old mining town. And what you've got to realise is, to get the coal out of the ground, a lot of the times, this is all the miners probably would have used. I don't know a lot about mining, but the amount of times mines would collapse locally and all over the country is because of a cave-in. And 9 times out of 10, until people obviously learn how to mine efficiently and effectively, they would have used things like wooden posts in order to prevent a cave-in. So, like I said, we've got to the point now where it has become something that we, as people who are not trained, can undertake the rest of this task. So the aim will be, first thing Monday morning, is to phone up who we've decided to undertake the work for us, get a quote and get a time frame, and hopefully within a week to maybe 2 weeks, this will not be as it is now, and we'll know exactly how much of this chimney is basically unsafe. And if you were to buy a property and it looked like this, obviously you would like to think whoever the owner was that they would fix it. But like I said, in the 70s, building regulations were nowhere near where they are today. And it's the same in other countries as well. So if you've got that house in Spain, or like with Bulgaria was very popular over a decade ago, people were buying properties in Bulgaria because it was cheap. Make sure you do your research. Do not be dependent on people to do it for you. Because at the end of the day, the book will stop at you. And you'll be the one accused of negligence. And what you don't want to obviously be doing as well is paying out for a job that might not be done right. So always get a second opinion, get a second quote. Don't be pressured into taking the first quote you get. Make sure that you have 2, maybe 3 people. I know it's time consuming, but when it comes to your safety and the health and safety and well-being of the people around you, make sure that any job that you legally cannot undertake with building regulations or lack of training or experience is done by a professional. Thank you.